My name is Dan Linn, and I'm from Bucyrus, Ohio, and we are here on Linn Acres Farms.
Here in the real place. All because I'll disclose it immediately. I already interviewed you once, and now I have new shiny microphones. It's the 10th of January, middle of winter, and we're redoing this in your nice heated barn.
Yes, we are. We're out of the cold snow of January.
Exactly. What is this truck?
This is a 1972 Freightliner, West Coast Freightliner, with a 318 Detroit and a 13-speed, pretty much basically all original. It was originally bought by my dad in 1972. He and I went to Portland, Oregon to the Freightliner plant, which was White Freightliner at that time. We toured the plant and brought it home with a glider kit on the back to Western Ohio Truck in Lima, Ohio, which is now Stoops, and which, by the way, they have the original fish film for the parts yet on this truck, and this truck has never left this property. It has always been here. It hauled fertilizer for years for my dad's fertilizer plant, liquid fertilizer and other ag commodities. Then I used it on the farm. It sat in the barn for quite a few years, and my son and I got it out of the barn and started restoring it. And my goal was to keep it all as original as I could. And we went back to the original lights and the paint scheme and everything that my dad had ordered from the dealer in Lima, Ohio.
Are these the original colors too?
These are original colors. It's a little bit brighter with the new chemistry of paint that is out now, but it's the same paint scheme, the same white and yellow and green is in the same places. Originally the frame was black. The only real major change was the tires. They were always Dayton's instead of Bud's, but they were 10-120s with 3-piece rims, 2-piece, and we went to the 11-22.5s with the different style rims with the 11-22.5s.
How old were you when you went out to get this?
I was 11 years old. We flew to San Francisco and stayed for a couple days, and we rented a car, and I remember we went up through the old gold mine towns all the way up to Portland, Oregon. We had a cousin that lived there, and we stayed with her for a couple nights, and then we toured the plant at Portland, Oregon. They had all kinds of neat stuff. Of course, at my age, they had Chalmers diesel engines at the time they were putting in trucks. They had the glider kit already mounted on it. We headed back east. We came across Boise, Idaho, Cheyenne, Wyoming, came all the way into Chicago and on into Lima, and my mom came over and picked us up when we got back.
Was that your first big, huge road trip as a kid?
That was my longest. I always rode in the truck, but yeah, that was by far my longest trip.
I'm guessing you didn't shut up about that for a long time.
Yeah. I remember my dad called him and told him I wouldn't be at school for the first couple of days.
I predict he's going to be sick. He's going to have the Freightliner fever. What made him decide on this specific truck? Did he like Freightliners or?
He liked Freightliner. I guess he was deciding between the International and the Peterbilt and the Freightliner. He had contacted the dealer at Lima, and he spec'd this truck out line by line. He had never had a sleeper truck before. Freightliner at that time was a really top quality truck. He liked the idea of the design on it from the West Coast, so that's what he went with.
And what is the engine, transmission, all that?
The engine's a 318 Detroit, and it's got a 13-speed transmission.
How many miles are on it?
I estimate there's like 800,000. The engine has always been a real good engine for a Detroit. It's set in here and it still doesn't have a lot of oil under it for a Detroit. It was overhauled one time. I drove this truck a number of years. The thing about this truck was it's so good a shape, there's only probably all of its life had 4 drivers, my dad, me, and a couple other drivers in this truck. And I drove this truck myself on loads from Upper Michigan all the way to Miami, Florida. I had a lot of history in this truck myself back in the early 80s and on through the 80s of driving this truck a lot of miles. My dad had a bumper made that had Linn Acres stamped in it from one of the early Mid-America truck shows. The plating was coming off, and it was a tapered bumper. We still haven't had it polished to keep it, but we wanted something a little nicer, so actually there was a company over in Sydney, Ohio that made this bumper. We kind of kept the same Linn Acres and farms in it, and we put the yellow lights behind it. The original bumper was a short steel bumper with the yellow fog lights and that on it they used back when the truck was built. Those are original. Those actually were original from Freightliner. Then they were using them called parking lights. When you parked, those were the only two lights you ran. That way it didn't run your batteries down if your truck wasn't running.
I'm sure we'll get a comment or two about these wheels.
Yes, we did go ahead and put the Michelin tires on it. We used to always run Firestones back in the day.
Has this been on it since new?
Actually, that plate was made when it was new, and my dad kept them in the desk all these years, and he gave them to me quite a few years before he passed away. We put them back on the truck.
Did you say wheelbase?
220, something more in that neighborhood. It wasn't extra long, but it was, yeah. We pulled a tanker and the weight balanced just right.
How long did this work?
It's 1972, and I can't recall if we got it that year. I know it was in the fall when we got it because it was right the first part of September. This truck worked pretty regular up, I'm going to say, to the early 90s.
So it put in its time. Do you work on the trucks yourself?
We do some work on it, yeah. When we redid it, did some. My neighbor, Todd Main, did some for me. A mechanic up at Venloo, Ben, we had to put a new radiator in it. He did that. And then Hurst Body was in business in Bucyrus at the time, and they did the painting and a lot of other restoration. So it was kind of a joint effort. The lettering was actually done by Denny in Crestline, Ohio, American Sign and Banner. And he had done my very first truck hand painted, and then he went to vinyl like everybody has. And he told me for this truck, he would go ahead and hand paint it again. And we went back to the original Linn Acres logo farms we had years ago. Now on our new truck, you'll see it's different. But this is the original logo, and this is all hand painted.
What about the corn cob?
That's the farm part. When this truck was pulling fertilizer for Linn Acre Soil Service, that was a teardrop in the liquid fertilizer thing. Yeah, all original interior. That's one thing about this truck. The interior was really good shape. We had to do a little bit of work up on the console and stuff, and some hinges, and the seats needed replaced. And my wife, she searched because they're real narrow, and she found a company out of Canada that had them. That actually we ended up buying them through Rainey's in Ocala, Florida, but they came out of Canada.
I like the instructions for the seatbelt.
Yeah. So that was the biggest thing inside probably was the seats. The biggest thing outside, like I said earlier, was the radiator.
When it made that first trip across the country, how did it feel? Do you remember?
Oh, it felt really smooth. I mean, now you ride it and then you get in the new truck and you think, oh, how did we do that? But coming across country, it was great. The one thing I remember is we didn't have any blankets in it when we first came across, and we couldn't let it idle because it was a new engine, and we got stuck up on the mountain in Idaho or Wyoming, whatever, and it was so cold that night. I remember that.
What did he drive before this?
It was an International Fleet Star with a 545 gas engine with an air tag on it. Conventional, little, just a day cab.
Does it have air?
Yes, it does have air conditioning.
Does it work?
Yes, it did work, and we need a new compressor now.
It will work.
Yeah, it was operating, but we need to replace the compressor.
Well, it's very cool that it's been in your family since day one. What does your son think of this truck?
Oh, he loves it.
Would this be the first truck he'd have ridden in, or one of your old work trucks?
Actually, the first truck would have been one of the newer trucks that I used for my road work. He was there when we pulled this truck out of the barn the first time, when we were like, okay, let's take a look at it and see if it's what we can do with it or how bad it is. And he was right there.
Did he help inspire you to work on it?
Yeah, he did. I knew that he was really interested and wanted to go. Thought it'd be something that him and I could do together and go to shows and enjoy it together. And my dad was really happy because he saw it, being restored again. Yeah, he got to see it finished. Yeah, he did.